Today we're going to install IBM I on an IBM Power6 server from 2008. IBM I is a magical beast. In fact, if you're shopping at Costco and keep your eye out, you might notice some green terminal screens. That's IBM I. Costco and many other companies still use it. IBM I started its life as the Application System 400, or AS400 line of machines IBM came out with in 1988. It's gone through many name changes over the years, now referred to as IBM I on Power, but its core principles have remained the same, and it's generally regarded as an extremely secure and reliable setup. But as we'll see today, it is notoriously picky about the hard drives it will use. So sit back and relax as I fight my way through low-level hard drive reformats, SAS RAID array controllers, and system configurations. There's a lot of high highs and low lows in this video, but we see that beautiful green terminal in the end. Let's get into it. This is an IBM Power6 520 Express server built in 2008. The IBM naming of these power servers can be really confusing, but this one specifically is a model 8203E4A. But before I go too far, I should set the stage here. I want to install IBM I on this thing. This machine is a descendant of IBM's AS400, or Application System 400, line of machines that came out in 1988. Those ran an operating system called OS400, but OS400 wasn't really an operating system the way we would think of it today. It was sort of at the top. Below that you had something called the Technology Independent Machine Interface, or TIMI, sometimes just called Machine Interface. Then below that you had the SLIC, the System Licensed Internal Code. We're going to go over all of that in great detail. Don't worry, I've been doing some light reading about the AS400 and IBM I. Anyway, all that stuff, AS400, OS400, TIMI, the SLIC, IBM just calls that IBM I on Power. They kind of consolidate around that in like the late 2000s. And I can see why they did that. Imagine showing this thing to some medium-sized business owner and he's trying to just control his inventory and your payroll, and you're like, well, if you just pay for our very expensive SLIC licensing because of the machine interface on top of that, this is going to be the best investment you've ever made in your business. So yeah, IBM I on Power. But I already own one of these. Basically the exact same machine. It's over in the retro rack, works great. It's running AIX, or maybe some people call it AIX, IBM's Unix variant that was meant to run on these power machines. So why would I want another one, other than this one obviously has a lot more parts than the one I already had does. We'll compare them side by side soon. Well, it was a good deal. A viewer named Isaac reached out and said, hey, he was a state over. He's like, I've got this server, I have no use for it anymore, I'm tired of trying to get IBM I on it. That's what we're going to do in this video. Would you want it? And I said, sure. And the stars aligned, and him and his buddy were on a road trip. I drove up not too far from me to meet them. We had a nice chat, and he gave me the server. So huge thanks to Isaac. And the second reason is I didn't understand how IBM licensing worked when it came to IBM I on these power machines. So we are going to look inside this thing, give it a full look around. We'll pull the other one out of the rack. I'll show you why it was maybe a good idea for me to get another one. This is a big piece of the puzzle. Wonder how many times I'm going to get away with that before that thing breaks. We will get IBM I installed. We will go over the architecture of IBM I. We are going to do a deep dive on all these different things. It's not even easy to get a freaking hard drive in these things and get IBM I to look at it, is my understanding. But to kick us off, the first part of this video will be IBM licensing. Inside this thing is something called the Vital Product Data Card, or VPD. In fact, let me show it to you. We'll have a proper look around this thing soon. Just want to talk about licensing for a second. See that little guy? Way down in there, that little card? That's the VPD. When IBM would build one of these, it would bake in some information to that little card. A unique serial number for the machine, some other machine number, its type, and what it's allowed to do. For example, this machine only has one processor, but there's something called capacity on demand, or COD. We're going to have a lot of acronyms in this video. Basically, if you had multiple processors, my understanding is that you could permanently or temporarily disable them and their corresponding memory banks. I don't think you can do that with this machine, so it doesn't really pertain to us here. I'm assuming it won't let you turn off one processor, but I don't even know if this machine has capacity on demand, is what I'm saying. It's hiding down there, and you have to go look, boot up the machine, and figure out what it's allowed to do. Oh yeah, there's a special note in this machine. We're gonna leave that there. Now, IBM I, the operating system, as it were, that you can put on these things, does require licensing keys to run, and they get tied uniquely to the serial number of the machine. So because of what Isaac told me, and maybe we'll find some context clues while we're poking around here, pretty sure this used to be an IBM I unit, which means when someone originally bought it and got the IBM I license keys, they got tied to this serial number. I don't have any of the information I need to retrieve those keys, basically. I'd have to go find the original owner or somehow find the original, like, receipt. And then if you transfer a license to another machine, I was reading some article, IBM doesn't mess around there. It's like thousands of dollars depending on your license you're transferring. Remember, I have another one of these. My naive assumption I had made was that something about the VPD was allowing this to run IBM I. I don't think that's the case. I'll be able to install IBM I on this, and probably even my existing machine, though we're going to try on this one. And basically you just get a 70-day trial till it shuts itself off, until you find the licensing keys, which I'm obviously not going to find in this situation. So we're going to install an error-appropriate version of IBM I, 70-day trial. This video has to take me 70 days or less to make. Now, aside from having physical access to the machine to see what it's licensed to do, which I'll show you shortly, there's also a remote way to do it. This is the IBM Entitled Systems Support, or ESS, portal. Anyone can log into this. I logged in with my Gmail, and you can look up computers by their serial number, which is what we're going to do now. You go over here to Advanced Search, and let's do serial number, and mine happens to be 1043F94. That is the machine that's on the bench over there. We'll do a search. And sure enough, IBM knows about it, knows exactly what it is, knows the old customer number. I don't have a customer number because I'm not a real customer, so you could theoretically like hunt down this person and get them to transfer it to me, but I don't have a customer number. And so you can't really learn much about this, so I can try to register this as mine, but I don't know the order number. I don't know what a SWMA contract number is. I don't know what a system number is. If I had one of those, I could try to be the primary customer. But yeah, just wanted to point out this is another way. And then there's also software downloads in here. Oh, please register a customer number before using the software option download. I'm not a customer. There it was. I knew it was somewhere. IBM I evaluation download. So I'm pretty sure we can get a copy of IBM I V6R1M0, which is roughly well, I think any IBM I will run on there, probably. But this would have been the version of IBM I, which was coming out around 2008. We'll probably download it in English. Yeah, we will try this later if we get that far. But I think before we start looking at the hardware, let's power up my existing P6, and I'll show you how you can actually sort of investigate what it thinks it's entitled to. Here's my fleet and network setup of my IBM Power gear. This is my other P6 here on the top. A couple of sweet P5s at the bottom there, a really beefy one way at the bottom. I'm pretty sure these can't run IBM I. Maybe we'll power them on later and investigate. Last time I looked, I'm 99% sure you can't even do a trial of IBM I on these. Don't quote me on that though. Maybe we'll look later. The plan here is this P6 is going to become a parts unit, so I'm going to take it out of the rack. None of this is on rails except for, well, I wouldn't say they're rails. It's got rack ears on the network gear. So I have to slide everything that's on top out to get that out. That'll be fun. This machine is very special. This is an IBM X Series 336, and it's running some software called HMC. It's acting as a hardware management console. This machine can be on and fully booted up, and I can remotely manage the other machines when they just have power going to them. So this machine isn't booted up, but it has power. You can see the lights blinking. Same here. So the game plan, let's power up the HMC, investigate the entitlements of this existing P6, because I don't plan on turning it on again for a long time. I got my special IBM approved power switch tool. Okay, I'll see you in 20 minutes when the HMC software's done. I can access that HMC machine over a KVM all the way in here. The HMC is just a lockdown version of some Linux distro that IBM put a bunch of their software on. I'm pretty sure it's a bunch of Java stuff. This takes forever to come up. It's alive though, so another 10 minutes, maybe we can log into it, and I'll see if I can remember my password. About 5 or 6 minutes later, it's thinking about it. Initialization is in progress. If you have one of these, don't worry. Just be patient. Another couple minutes later, and we can log on. Takes forever for this window to show up too, though. I think it's HSC root, and then let's find out. This looks promising. We're in. Okay, we got to go to Systems Management, Servers. Excellent. So the two P5s on the bottom, no connection, they're off. But I can go investigate things about this Power6. I don't remember how to do this. So I'm going to play around for a little bit and I'll show you what I find. Now I'm remembering why I thought that thing couldn't do IBMI, because it tells me that it can't. We've got this capabilities section in its properties. IBMI capable is false. And here's that capacity on demand thing I was talking about. Also false. This thing can't do jack shit. Alright, that makes me feel less crazy about getting another one of these. I really hope that's not what the next one tells us, but I wanted to show you this first before I turned that off and took it out of the rack. I'm going to bring it in here. I'll get this out of the way for a second. We'll compare the two machines. We'll do a little dive on what this power architecture is all about. Let's get into the hardware. There is one last thing I want to do before I disconnect it and probably don't power it on again for years. So I've got it selected and I want to reset or remove connections. So that machine has been tied to this hardware management console. I'm going to remove it. My understanding is it's easier to do it this way than later, because you would have to physically reset something on what's called the Flexible Service Processor, or FSP. I'll actually show you some of those in a second. So I'm going to do this. Never done this before. And it's gone. Okay, cool. I'm going to shut all this down and lug that thing in here. Well, I got it in here, which wasn't fun, let me assure you. Remember, I was saying there's no rails on the P6 or anything above it, really. So the P6 is sitting on top of one of the P5 machines. On top of that is the HMC machine. And there was like a terminal server sitting on top of that, and a random Raspberry Pi that wasn't plugged into anything. Don't know what that's about. But we got it. These are the exact same model. It is also an 8203E4A, aka a P6 520 Express. Except, of course, that the capabilities for the original owner paid for, and that get baked into the VPD. Now I'm getting kind of nervous that this one is saying it can't run IBMI, but we're going to try it anyway. Kind of just wanted to show you that they're exactly the same, and sort of prove it to myself, I guess. This one's missing a bunch of parts. Obviously, the case lid is missing. It never had a tape drive like the other one. In a previous video on this, a bunch of people commented that this was its nose ring. I don't know how I feel about that. Also didn't have the DVD drive. It did come with a hard drive though. The guy I bought this from already had AIX installed on it, so that was nice. We might reuse that hard drive, I don't know. Hard drive is going to be a whole section of this video. It's probably going to be a massive hurdle. I actually bought a faceplate for this baby on eBay, and I thought, wow, that's going to be great. Didn't work out so good, because this looks like crap. This, I don't have a drive, and there's nothing to hold it on. I sort of assumed that it clipped on the side or something. Not the case. On this one, you'll remember it kind of just pops off, and there's these little retaining clip things, and they're supposed to hook onto these nubs that are screwed into the front of the case. Well, my existing one doesn't have those, so you can't really put the bezel on. It's missing a lot of stuff. See these little handles? Supposed to be these little handles here, help you carry the thing. It's also missing those. We'll put this to the side, I'll shut up about it soon, but it confirms my theory that I believe this one was using a desk side kit. And there's a picture of one on this lid. Let me pull it off. You could get a desk side kit and you could convert one of the rack mounted machines into one that you'd have under your desk. I think there was some noise dampening in there, but I imagine it was heinously loud, so, you know. But it looks really sweet. They're very rare, very hard to find complete. They usually cost more than the machine itself on eBay, which is a shame, but pretty sure that's what's going on with this guy. Our very first clue that we have even half a chance of running IBMI on this thing is the labels the previous administrator left. We've got TAP01, OPT01. TAP probably stands for tape, OPT for optical, and I'm pretty sure I remember reading that's what IBM would call these things, TAP 1 through N, OPT 1 through N, so that is a good sign. And we have a tape drive, which is exciting. There's also this cute little label, installed May 2009, went live June 15th, 2009. And then of course we've got the Power6 built on power logo. I already checked and we don't have any drives, but we do have the caddies, so that's a big win. It does have the front panel that these guys have. The big P5s have these really beautiful panels where you can see the LCD display the whole time. These serve the same function, but they're not nearly as cool. It's called the operator panel. It gives you a little information with some indicators here, and of course the power button. And then you can traverse through some menus here. You can change like the IP for the remote management, something called a ASMI, I think it is. We'll go look at that. And it'll give you the progress indicator codes. So as this thing boots up, it does a bunch of different hardware checks. Eventually it gets into the software, and you get a unique code for every step of its little life cycle. And when it halts on a code, you can go Google it, look at the IBM documentation, and hopefully get an idea as to what's going wrong. The tape drive door is messed up, so it's not actually usable at the moment. Let's get the bezel off here. Honestly, can't remember if it was always like that or if I've inadvertently done that while I've owned it. That was surprisingly easy. It's a DAT 160 drive. How much do I care about this? I could get really distracted trying to fix this. I think I got to take this front bezel off, which means I got to take this drive out of its little caddy thing. I don't have any tapes for it anyway, so we won't worry about that today. I mean, can you even have a real IBM I machine without a tape drive, though? I'm going to leave this off so I don't break it for now. Now, this came out of a school, like a public school district, I think. But there's a little badge with the previous administrator's name, I think, his business card. Kind of looked around. He's still around, but I don't think he's doing any of this stuff anymore. The I-5 guy. And then the more interesting tag. This belonged to the Alpine School District. I didn't look it up, but I'm guessing it's in Utah. Inside, we've got a single processor unit populated right here. That's a Power6 processor. I don't know what variant. We'll have to figure that out when we boot it up. It's a souped up Power PC, I guess you could say. I don't have much to say about Power6. I'm sure they had new features in it, but it's just a better version of the Power 5 and 4 that came before it. And if you're like me, you thought, well, I can pull the other processor out, put it in here, and assuming I don't have any licensing headaches, which I'm sure I would have, I'd be cruising. But no, this can physically only take one processor, and you can kind of tell right down in there, the RAM banks for the second processor are literally not populated. There are nowhere to put the stick. So this is a single processor unit. Another point in our favor that this can run IBM I, or that it did at least once in its life. This is some sort of RAID controller card, and this is a battery for the RAID array. The other P6 I have didn't have one of these, and I was reading that IBM I really likes solid RAID configurations, and it's picky about having a battery backup on the cache and stuff. And maybe I can get you in and point at this other sticker back here. You can't really see, but it says, do not remove battery if LED is flashing, cache data exists. So yeah, something to do with the RAID controller for the drives. But that's a scene you never thought you'd see. On the back, we've got a 4-port network card. It's capable of doing 10 gig, which is pretty crazy for 2008, if you ask me. And then we've got the HMC ports. So this thing has what's called a flexible service processor, or FSP. It's basically a little computer inside this computer that lets me hook up to the HMC. So as you'll recall, the other P6 was plugged in, but it wasn't booted up. It wasn't making any noise, but I was still able to talk to it over the HMC. That's what this little flexible service processor does. And I removed the other one from HMC management because I don't know if you can like directly access this without the HMC. There's a way to factory reset these things, but they used to have an FSP card that came out and with little dip switches. It's very easy to factory reset and get into the other management flow, which we'll attempt to do on this one. But anyway, I don't know what this is. I'm going to pull it out, find out. This orange color, or terracotta, as the lid calls it, theoretically means I could be messing around with these PCI cards while this thing's running, but I think you flip this sideways to make it so you can actually get the card out. Let's see if this works. I'm trying to do this without blocking the camera or breaking anything. What is this thing? Well, that connector is very IBM, but I can't remember what this is. I'm going to go look up the part number. It is an IBM board. It's apparently a binary synchronous adapter, and I can't tell exactly which one I have, but some of them only work with IBM I, so that's a point in our favor. I think what the IBM docs are trying to tell me is this is a modem port, a V92 modem port. This is something called an RVX port, and from what I'm gathering, you could plug a modem into this somehow. I don't know. I'm going to put it back where I found it. And then the two typical serial ports, we'll likely be using one of these to get the initial install going. And some more IBM I stuff. Some SPCN ports. It stands for System Power Control Network, and my understanding is that you can get additional like I/O shelves, like a disk shelf, maybe a PCI shelf or something, and you would daisy chain them all together with these SPCN connections, and it allows the primary server to monitor and control power distribution to those disk shelves or other nodes or something like that. Anyway, I don't have what we need to play with that, but that would be fun to mess around with someday. And it's getting late, and Chloe is obviously ready for bed. So tomorrow, we're going to come down here, we're going to power this thing on, get into the ASMI, the Advanced System Management Interface. The service processor down here with these two HMC ports should be hosting a UI we can talk to without an HMC. It should also allow us to look at what this thing is capable of, and we'll go from there. It's the next evening, and I've been doing a little groundwork, pulled out a bunch of cards here. So this FSP, this little computer in a computer, on these Power6 machines, it's embedded in the motherboard, or the planar, as IBM would call it. As you can hopefully see, these are the HMC jacks here. It is part of the planar. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I want to access the ASMI. I'll show an example of what that looks like on the screen here. It's basically a way to manage this machine without an HMC. Service processor here is hosting the ASMI, the Advanced System Management Interface. We'll do a acronym count maybe partway through this video, see how many we've racked up so far. And it lets you manage the machine, see what its entitlements are, its capabilities, I guess IBM calls them, and power the machine on and do all sorts of interesting things. It's got some default IPs. Each of the jacks has a different, slightly different network that you can connect a laptop up, ideally running Windows 7 or something, and you can talk to that thing. So what I'm getting worried about, maybe without cause, is that this was a machine that was in real use, clearly was running IBM I, administered. They've probably reset the admin user and or password. I don't know yet because I haven't booted it up, but I was just trying to get a feel for what I'm going to have to do to get in here. And it used to be way easier. So I'm looking at this Spiceworks post from some poor soul in February of 2015 who can't get into their exact same server, an 8203E4A Power6 520. That's what I've got. They've lost their password. Over a year later, in August 2016, which is kind of like a crazy timeline, this guy goes, just use the service processor reset toggle switches, and links to the documentation. Let's go take a look at that. And sure enough, we're looking at the IBM documentation for Power6, and it says troubleshooting problems in accessing the ASMI. And what should you do if you are locked out of the ASMI? Well, you use the service processor reset toggle switches. Those don't exist. I've been looking all over the planar, and I don't see any toggle switches. A bunch of posts in that forum thread are saying, yeah, just go toggle your switches or whatever. As far as I can tell, they're not on here. I think they're using dated information from the P5 series, or maybe several of these Power6 had like a removable, flexible service processor. In fact, because I unracked everything, it should be relatively easy for me to go find you a flexible service processor card from one of the other machines. I'm going to go do that now. I'll be right back. This is the FSP from a P5 520, sort of the prior iteration of this machine, I guess you could say. That was the one that was sitting in the rack right there. Not to go on a tangent, but we're about 20 minutes in. I've been keeping this video pretty tight, except for that whole desk side kit thing, so we've got some time. These are really easy to reset. So basically they've taken all this logic and integrated it, whoops, into the main board for these newer machines. And if you want to reset this thing back to factory settings with the default admin username and password, all you got to do is flip these little switches right here in the other direction. Then it's totally reset. That does not appear to be the case for this Power6. There are no toggle switches. It's arguably easier, assuming it works. I haven't tried it yet, but I kind of like where you can just flip the switch. I see where they went with this. Let me show you that forum thread again. I don't like this guy's advice. Please call IBM support and ask for the CE login password. So IBM, you would have your own login username and password, and IBM could generate you a valid password for a username called CE login. Anyway, we're not calling IBM. So a bunch of other people commented what I believe is the right answer, but this guy is saying reset switch on the operators panel, and you should go read about it in the IBM Knowledge Center, the machine troubleshooting service and support, replay, blah, blah, blah. Let's go look at that document. It's really useful that he tells us to go to step 66. So here we are on the IBM Power6 documentation, we're going to go to the Troubleshooting Service and Support section. We'll go to Removal and Replacement Procedures for the Power 520 Express. Then we'll go to Removing and Replacing FRUs. System Backplane. We're at the System Backplane page. Let's go down to step 66, shall we? There we go. There's our operator panel, and you're supposed to put a little pin in item E, and then you go back up to step 58. And then it gives you this warning about an HMC. I don't even want to use an HMC yet. Anyway, the point is, hopefully we don't have to do this. And even among people that no doubt knew what they were doing, it's very hard to figure out what you should do between the iterations of these machines. The IBM documentation is out there for each machine, typically on the IBM website, but it's so hard to figure out which document you need and everything. Half these people were right, half these people were wrong. Well, I don't even know. I haven't tried it yet, but let's power it up. Here is what's going to be going on the back of the machine. I'm going to have to flip it around because I'm going to want access to the operator panel to see what the machine is up to and maybe even configure some things. That could be exciting. Out of the serial port, we've got a serial to USB converter going to my main machine. You just saw me on HMC port 1. I've got this Ethernet cable going to Old Faithful here. The gigabit TP-Link switch that I bought 8 years ago on Amazon. And then we're going to plug it in. I found this big monster, literally just sitting on the ground, rated for 300 volts. Even the Europeans can't make fun of me. So we'll get that plugged into one of the power supplies, and then I'll flip it around here. Oh, we got to give this thing a proper turn on. Get its pants back on. So throughout this video, and I suspect it's going to get worse, it's going to sound like I'm kind of knocking these things from a technical perspective, but I'm really not. All this stuff you have to know, you have to remember these things can trace their lineage back to like the late 70s with the System 38 at least, but definitely back to 1988 with the introduction of the AS400. And so a lot of the stuff that seems very weird to us now, especially when we get into the operating system, we have to remember is for good reason. These are very, very reliable and serious machines. In fact, if you go to Costco, if you have a Costco around you, and you pay close enough attention, you might see an IBM green screen. Costco still runs all their stuff on these babies. Hopefully newer ones than this 08 Power 6 unit. But one of the things that makes me gravitate towards these things is you do have to know all this weird stuff. And it's like a totally different world, even just the hardware. And you start to feel like you're part of some club, like you're a very powerful IT wizard, even the very minimal knowledge I know. So everything I've showed you thus far, I've already experienced with these things over the past 2 or 3 years messing around with them. Now that we're going to try to install IBM we're going to get into pretty uncharted territory for me, and I will do my best to explain everything as I learn it. We're learning together. So, with that said, I've never turned this thing on. Oh yeah. Those are just power supply fans, and I can see some progress codes. If we were so inclined, we could go look that progress code up, that progress indicator, up in the IBM documentation, and it would tell us exactly what that thing meant. I'm going to wait till it progresses past at least whatever that is. Then we'll go check out the serial port, and then we'll see if we can get into the web GUI. It's like 5 minutes later, and it's still stuck on C100 1029, which looks like bad news based on my research. False alarm, we're in good shape. I was moving all my microphones over from this camera you're watching on now over to the computer, and it came to life. So this is what you want to see. Serial port's not looking too hot, not gonna lie. So what have we got? We're on screen 1. We're in normal mode, and then those I need to refresh my memory. We'll learn about those. So you can choose different screens, as you can see. Oh, how does this work? That's right. So let's go to screen 2. Enter. Oh my gosh. Look how arcane this is. There's a way to figure out the IP that it thinks the service processor is using. Let me go look that up. I'll be back. All right, I had to look up the documentation. So we need to get into some special hidden features. So we're going to change normal mode to M for manual mode. We'll get out of here. And then we have more options, one of which is 30. Christ. I gotta read the docs again. Okay. So that one is HMC port 1, the one we're plugged into. And it is at 169.254.3.147, which off the top of my head looks like it's the default, which is good. Maybe we don't have to reset the password. Let's get a laptop out. Upon further research, remember how there's 2 ports? We're plugged into the first one. Computers usually start with the number 0. I'm looking at ETH1 right here. That's actually port 2, if that makes sense. There we go. I want to look at option 3000. There we go. ETH0. That is the port we're plugged into because it's the first port, and that is the default, 169.254.282. That is the default network that these power machines use. Let's get a laptop on that network. Got the trusty IBM ThinkPad T60 out, running Windows 7, booted up in 5 seconds because computers used to not suck. It's on the same network as the HMC. I said HMC just then. I think I meant Flexible Service Processor. Oh, this is always a battle. Just connect. You can do it. Don't worry about getting online. All right, 1 second. This will take me a second battling with Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is being a huge pain in the dick, so I'm doing something I should have done a long time ago. I'm installing Firefox version 3.5.4 from 2009. Transferred it over with the reliable Geek Squad 2 GB USB stick that my wife got approximately 3 billion years ago when she used to work at Best Buy. Oh, what do you know? Firefox works perfectly. Computers always sucked. And for the record, I did try HTTPS on Internet Explorer. Didn't work. So, the best case scenario is just admin. What are our chances? Our chances are really good. We're in. Okay, this is the Advanced System Management Interface. It doesn't say interface on the little logo, but all the documents call it ASMI, Advanced System Management Interface. That's why I call it ASMI. Now let's see if we can learn about this machine. System information. Vital product data. That's what we need. Oh, Jesus. I don't even know. Let's learn about the enclosure. Display details. 1 second. I'm just going to try to figure out if I can get any indication that this can run IBMI. I haven't found anything yet, but I'm looking at the firmware maintenance history, so that I'm guessing this is the firmware on the service processor. Pretty big hint is that there's a 2014 IBM copyright date up there. The very first thing it saw was 2010, which doesn't make sense, because that logo on the front said 2009, but maybe that's fine. However, this thing was updated as recently as 2014, so that's pretty cool. Remember that weird modem card I was showing you? Without an operating system installed at all, it knows that there are 2 modem ports. I think that's what I'm looking at. All this stuff was a very integrated system. If you stayed in IBM's lane, it would just work if you were a genius IT wizard. And here's a clue about our serial port issue. I was connected at 9800 baud, and this thing is configured for 19,200 baud. So that will be useful to know later. So I can't find any entitlements or capabilities or whatever IBM called them, but I am seeing that it will at least attempt to boot to i5 iOS, which was in the 2008 era, right before they started calling it IBMI. They called it i5 OS. We'll get into it. Anyway, I'm pretty sure this thing can run IBMI, and I'm pretty sure we can format some hard drives if we set our i5 OS partition boot mode to the letter D. In short, this thing appears to be healthy. I can get into ASMI on the default settings. Admin is the username, admin is the password. You're looking at it right here. It's not complaining about any critical hardware errors. I had fun looking through all this. Anecdotally, this thing responds like a lot faster than any ASMI I've ever dealt with, so that's encouraging. Now we got to talk about hard drives. I don't even know where to begin. So this is the hard drive that I was running in my existing P6 machine. It is running AIX Let me know in the comments if everyone calls it AIX. I've been hearing that lately. It is a SAS drive, which stands for Serial Attached SCSI. But for the purposes of this video, you can just think about this as a normal old hard drive you'd have in your PC back in 2008. And so a hard drive has magnetic platters that we lay the bytes down, well, I should say the bits down on, zeros and ones. And they are broken up into tracks. So you got a track out here. Imagine a circle. Hard drives have platters, which in turn are broken down into tracks. Each track is divided up into sectors. Now, there have been many sector sizes over the years, and modern drives from roughly 2010 and up use 4 kilobyte sectors, but traditionally, for many years, in most applications, a hard drive would have a 512 byte sector. The sector is the smallest physical piece of the media where you can read and write data to. You can use Linux, Windows, all the usual suspects, and they'll be more than happy to leverage a drive that has been formatted with 512 byte sectors. But IBM? Oh no, it uses 520 byte sectors. Let's take a closer look at this P-Series drive I just pulled out of the other machine. It is an IBM branded drive from the eServer P-Series era. That P-Series thing is important. You can think of that as this is a normal hard drive. The IBM stuff used to be called, they were two separate branches of hardware, and it would have been called an I-Series drive. I don't have one of those. And this is actually exactly the same year this thing came out. July 6th, 2008. This thing is almost certainly formatted to 512 byte sectors. What are you doing? Chloe? Can you come out? Can you stop making a ton of noise? Thank you. Based on my research, IBM is not going to recognize this drive because it wants 520 byte sectors in all the tracks on the magnetic platter on the drive. IBM did this because they had extra information to store. So when you're writing applications, generally speaking, I am a software engineer, I know it's hard to believe, you worry about at least 3 things. How much RAM you're going to use, depending on what your thing's up to, how much CPU you're going to use, and your I/O. So how many times, how often are you going out to disk and you need something remote? And then the CPU aspect is like, what are you doing with the information you have from the I/O you've grabbed into memory? Anyway, IBM is really, really weird. You don't worry about RAM. You do not worry about storage. You do not worry about anything. When you're writing an application, you just have what they call a space. So there is no concept of RAM as a programmer when you're writing applications on IBM on these power systems. Frank Sultis, who technically has a doctorate, so Dr. Frank Sultis, is the architect of AS400 and therefore IBM, which I'm going to try to run on the machine on the bench today. There he is, the man himself. He was born in 1940. My understanding is he's still alive, so if you see this, let's do an interview. Anyway, we are lucky enough that he wrote several books about how the AS400 works, and therefore IBM, and there are several editions. I believe this is the newest one from when they called it the IBM I series, which is right before this machine came out, and they are fascinating. I have read both of these, believe it or not, and I still don't understand anything. But my point is, when you're writing applications for IBM, they have something called a single level store. Everything you worry about, files, anything, goes into a contiguous block of space. So there is no RAM, there is no storage. You can add disks to the machine. Your programs don't care. You allocate space that you need and you use it. There is no concept of RAM as an application developer for AS400, OS400, IBM. Here's how the single level store works, by the way. These are disks and here's memory. As a programmer, you have access to this big pile of stuff. And you can allocate spaces. Long story short, I think they use the bigger sector size to store metadata about the piece of information that's there, probably like RAID array configuration stuff, maybe some security stuff. I'm not entirely sure. This book doesn't really tell me, as far as I can tell. This thing is probably 512, and you might not even be able to get a hard drive to reformat to a different sector size. It sounds like, from my research, IBM is really picky about the hard drives at once. I'm hoping that because this is an IBM branded P-Series drive, maybe we can get away with it. I'm not entirely sure. The worst case scenario is I'm just going to have to go on eBay or find someone to sell me some pre-formatted drives that will work with IBM I. We're going to have to low-level format this thing, I suspect. I'm hoping the IBM I install media is capable of that. I don't want to sacrifice this one. It's already running AIX. Works perfectly in that other P60, which I'm not going to turn on for years. Famous last words, I guess. Over 2 years ago, a patron and viewer sent me a bunch of more of the P-Series drives. Recanorio sent me these a very long time ago. It looks like they're both from May 13th, 2005. Also eServer P-Series branded. We're going to slap these in there, and then we'll go find some IBM I install media, and hopefully we can format these in such a way that the IBM I software will like them. I was about to screw these things into their caddies and discovered a very big problem. They're SCSI drives. I need SAS drives. Totally different connector, obviously. So these old P-Series drives are not going to work for us today. I'll put these back in the box. I was digging through my stash and I found a couple 1 terabyte System X SAS drives. So System X was their like x86 line of servers. So you had Series P, Series I, they used to call it Series X. At any rate, it's going to be the same problem. This is probably not formatted with the right sector size, but we're going to throw them in there anyway. We're going to go with 2 drives because I've read IBM I really likes redundancy and RAID arrays. So we're going to give it the 2 drive sacrifice and hope that we have success. You put them in upside down, which bothers me for no good reason. 2 1 terabyte SAS drives are in. It is time, finally, to attempt to install IBM I. I'm back on the IBM Entitled Systems Support application, and I'm trying to download IBM I V6R1. So we'll agree. It says it's going to take 26 hours if I'm on a dial-up connection. Useful information. And it wants me to like download an application in order to do this, the download director. So you do download now, then this bar at the bottom of the screen kind of happens, and so I need to generate a pop-up to download the IBM download director. Oh, of course I need Java to do. What in the Oracle is going on here? Yes, I'm doing it. It can harm my device. Keep. No, it's a JNLP. Oh my God, this is bad. This is not good. Not that I don't trust IBM. I don't think they're going to hurt my computer. It's just a pretty weird way to do this. A lot of people don't realize IBM was and still is a huge Java shop. The OS 400 guys built a JVM layer into the operating system. Pretty wild. Can I download it now? There are other ways to get this. I was trying to do it the right way. Oh, I'm so stupid. It says HTTP is available if you cannot use or choose not to use the download director. I choose not to, so maybe this will work. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, there's the ISO as a zip. We're going to download both of these. Now we're cruising. I have, theoretically, at least, procured a copy of IBM I. Accidentally put it on a DVD-R. It was only like 400 megabytes. Probably could have used a CD, but this is a DVD drive, so hopefully that's not a problem. Let's boot this thing back on, and then we're going to want to get into the serial console now that I know the baud rate, because that's how we're going to do the install, I think. We'll go from there. Actually, we might already have a problem. I was only able to download this thing, which is the licensed internal code, licensed machine code, one piece of the whole IBM I ecosystem. There's supposed to be more images that actually have the base part of the operating system. There's also a disk with additional fonts that I don't have. Might have to happen upon said disks, but we'll start with the base. I believe we're going to be able to tell this thing to boot from this disk, and hopefully it will be able to format those drives or see them or something. That's our first port of call here. It's been like 5 minutes and that thing still hasn't fully booted the service processor, so I don't have anything on the serial console. It still has that very early stage progress indicator that we saw earlier that took forever to go away. Oh, it has come to life. I think we can log in with admin. 80 columns is fine. 24 lines is fine. Okay. System configuration. Oh, geez. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I think power and restart control It will be important, I believe, to change the IBM partition mode boot. Let's take a look at that. And believe it or not, to get it to boot from that disk, we're gonna want to choose D, option D. If we consult the value for IPL types, system operating modes and speeds documentation from IBM, IPL stands for initial program load. It's IBM's fancy way of saying getting the machine to boot into some software it can run like an operating system. And as we can see, there are 4 types, A and B. So at the end of the day, I think the licensed internal code, so a core part of the operating system, is going to be stored in 2 places on disk. The default is you're booting from copy A, so my machine is in A mode right now. You can also boot from B. It says, do not use option C, only under the direction of Rochester Development Support, or it'll mess your stuff up. Finally, option D, IPL from media other than the load source disk, aka that DVD-ROM I'm going to put in the drive. This might affect us. The operating mode manual allows me to perform an attended IPL, meaning I'm going to be involved, I think. I don't know how involved. Then I believe the machine is currently in normal mode, meaning it just boots to whatever it can find. Then we've got various IPL speeds. I don't think we're going to care about this. It basically just does more initial checks of the hardware as it boots up if you put it in these slower modes. And then finally, the firmware IPL type. And I don't really know what the difference is between the A and B above and this P and T copy of the licensed internal code. I guess this is the firmware on the machine, now that I'm thinking about it. Nothing to do with IBM I. Basically, you can update the firmware on the machine to one of these locations, and if it's a problem, you go back to the other location. Bringing that all together, we can see all these things on the operator panel. We're in normal mode, not manual mode. V equals H, I believe, means it's going to boot fast, not a bunch of extra checks. And the firmware on the system is using the T, not the P side of its firmware. Then we can go to screen 2, and you can see we're in option A, and we could put it on D if we wanted to, but I'm just going to do it all from the command line. Now I'll warn you, I'm experimenting here. I've done a little bit of reading, but I haven't actually sat down and, end to end read the install guide for IBM I yet. I suspect I'll have to. So I'm going to go to option 1, power restart control. Then we're going to go to power on and off the system, option 1 again. I'm going to change number 7, the partition mode boot. I need to change that to D, I think. Let's do number 4 to change it to D. Perfect. Now it says it is currently D. I'm just glancing at all this. I'm going to go to 8 for power on. I suspect it's going to get a little loud in here. It's going to do more checks. It's going to run through a bunch of progress codes, and eventually it will get loud in here. This is without noise canceling. Not terrible. We'll see what happens. When you're connected to the serial port, it spits out the same progress indicators that are on the panel. We could go like randomly look one of these up. I can't find anything about that one. Let's use this one. Oh, look at all that. That one started with C700, so it has something to do with the server firmware IPL. Okay. These things take quite a while. It's possible I have it in a slower IPL mode. I need to wrap my head around that document I was showing you a little better. Server has a little bit of a smell to it. Not bad, though. It did rev the fans down ever so slightly. It's actually not too terrible in here. What are you doing this weekend? This is how everyone should spend their Saturday afternoon. We've been sitting on this one for quite a while. You want to know what it means? It means delayed lid has loaded successfully. We've been sitting at this one, C600-4031, for many, many minutes, and there's a help article about it. Well, it's not much of a help article, but if this step takes longer than expected, it says the IBM I operating system can take longer than expected to detect the hardware resource for a console. So what that implies to me is that it doesn't know I'm sitting here connected to the serial port. I'm going to go poke around about maybe I have to change the console types or something. Or maybe we need to get this on an HMC. These things use the classic IBM 5250 terminal console. I don't have one of those, obviously. I'm do some research. Upon further research, I have a couple options here. I can get it attached to an HMC, and I can use the console that way, a virtual console. That's probably what I'm going to do. Or I can install some like IBM LAN wizard crap, and you can have a console accessible over the network. I think we're going to go the HMC route because I wanted to do that anyway. Oh yeah. HMC time, my favorite time. Pro tip, always take your front bezel off before you lug a 80-pound machine around, because otherwise you'll break your front bezel. Ask me how I know about that. So far, I think this is relatively good news. That error code is implying that IBMI is trying to do something, and it's waiting for a console, and I validated that that serial port cannot act as said console, so I think we're making progress. I'm going to get this in the rack. I am really liking what I'm seeing here. Of course, I already had a Power6 in here, but it was missing so many parts, and the faceplate didn't stay on, and this one's in perfect condition, and it just looks so much better. This is really, really cool. So the hub is on. This hub is pretty sweet, by the way. Also IBM. Viewer named Rainer from all the way from Austria sent me this a long time ago, and I put it to use. I got a little carried away. How many things are plugged into this? 4. Exactly 4 things are plugged into this. This is the HMC network. So all the power machines, they only ever connect up to the HMC network, though there's no reason I couldn't get them to the outside world. The outside world being the retro rack hosting a 10.0.0 network, not the internet. And in fact, if I'm feeling adventurous or get blocked by the HMC, we might have to set up that network-based terminal access here, console access. This HMC server has 2 network interface ports, so one of them I've dedicated to the HMC work, and another one it actually does talk to the retro rack when necessary. So we'll get my little power tool. I never could figure, this thing has its own remote management, very similar to the ASMI, I think, and I can't remember if I ever got it to work. Maybe I did. That would be a 3rd network I could build in here. That would be fun. Come on, come on. Get in. This screwdriver's so long. There we go. If I had infinite money and infinite space, I would have like 5 racks of all this IBM stuff. It's so good. Welcome to the HMC administration station. I mentioned before I have KVM access to this thing, so this is what the KVM interface looks like. I've got one thing attached to it, the HMC, and look how bad the image is. And it sort of shifts as I move these very crappy VGA cables around. Remember this screen? Yeah, 10 minutes and we'll be up. But I'll direct you to the current setup, if you could even call it that. This is a powered VGA splitter. So coming in from the KVM, which is on the other side of this wall, another one of those really thin cables. This thing does help, actually, because it's powered. This is going to the monitor we were just looking at, and this one I use optionally, occasionally, for HDMI capture. If the picture improves dramatically, maybe we'll use that today. And this is some more IBM AS400 stuff. In fact, we'll go over this towards the end of the video. Can't use it yet, but I got big plans. In a video where I installed Windows 2000 and Active Directory on an old Compaq server, I was complaining about my VGA cables. I think they're part of the problem here. And a bunch of folks reached out offering to send me really nice VGA cables, to the point where I couldn't, in good faith, keep accepting these cables. Like, I can't just be hoarding nice VGA cables down here. I'm just one guy. A viewer named Michael sent in some pretty nice looking ones. Let's compare them to my existing ones, and you'll see what I mean. Mine are on the right. I bought a pack of 5 of these on eBay or Amazon or something, and one of the cables Michael sent in is on the left, and you can see a pretty significant increase in quality. Then a viewer and patron who has sent in all sorts of cool stuff over the years named Brooke sent me the king of all VGA cables here, and it even has the audio cable that you could wire with it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this one through the wall to the KVM. That'll let me position the splitter in a better location. This is as far as I can get it because my cable is so short. That cable's really long, so I'll be able to put this way over here. And then we'll use these other 2 pretty good looking cables to hook up monitors and HDMI capture and everything. And I even have someone else sending me another one that's kind of like this, but it's in the mail still. Thanks to everyone that reached out. Let's see if it actually makes any difference. This one is a unit, so it's got the audio jack coming out right there, and then it flows over one solid cable, and you get access on the other end. The audio jack is kind of wasted in this application. I don't have any audio coming over the KVM, and the one I said is in the mail is pretty much this girth, and it doesn't have the audio cable, so I'll probably swap that out for what I'm doing here, but I'm going to go run this to the KVM. This is the KVM situation on the other side of the wall. And oh yeah, this is that cable coming straight from the KVM. It is so much better. It's like perfect now. Okay, That is a huge relief. I'm really glad it was the VGA cables. I was worried that it was just how the KVM gets over to the other room. So at the end of the day, it's going through like a Cat5e cable, and you've got one of these on the other end on the computer. But it doesn't seem to be the Cat5 cable or anything. That looks incredible. Okay, let's get to work. I don't care about IBMI anymore. We're just gonna bask in the glory of being able to see the HMC interface in HD. Trying to remember how to add a server so it doesn't see it naturally. I think we have to go to add managed system here. I guess I can put in the default HMC network. Let me go remember what that was. We're just going to try those HMC defaults, see if we get anywhere. You know, it's all coming back to me now. For some reason, I used 192.168.1 as my HMC network. This isn't going to work. Oh, I should have done that before I put it over there. I need access to the serial console again, or I guess I could go run the laptop in there and reconfigure it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the laptop in there and I'm going to assign the HMC port 1 a 192.168.1 IP. I have no idea why I did it this way. I'll be back. We're having fun. I actually gave up on the laptop. I made the executive decision that it would be better to have serial port access. I think I'm not going to regret that. Sorry I didn't consult you. Remember that terminal server that was sitting on the top of the HMC unit? Well, it's back now. And I just spent the better part of an hour trying to connect to it, and the solution was to restart it. And I had to fire up the whole retro rack because it's on the retro rack network. Anyway, this is the beautiful UI for that thing, and we need to change port 8, which I have plugged the Power6 machine into, to 19,200 baud. We're going to do that. Okay, hopefully I don't have to look at this again for another few months. I spent the last hour trying to talk to the terminal server itself. I haven't actually tried to get into the serial console of the Power6, so it's been a while since I used this, but I'm pretty sure I telnet into the terminal server and then I plugged it into port 8. The terminal server should be exposing that on port 2800, as I recall. Now, it's not working. Okay, I'll be back in another hour. Only took a couple minutes. We needed a null modem adapter. We're in. Let's go to network services. Network configuration. ETH0. There we go. Let's give it a static IP. A lot of menus just to do this. We're going to set it at 192.168.150. My wife just texted me and ruined the audio. Save settings. Okay, I think we're in good shape. We are at 192.168.50. And we have serial port access. Let's go back to the HMC. To recap what just happened there, I set the port that I'm plugged into on the service processor to 192.168.150 because that is the network my HMC is using to talk to all the service processors on my power gear. And so theoretically, we can come in here and add that guy. So we're going to add a managed system. That is the new IP that's connected up to the hub. The default password was admin. And let's see if it sees that machine. It says no connection. Might take a second. This part is a blue link now. The ones that are truly offline and just black text. This HMC software is from the Power 7 era, so it's a little newer than the Power 6, but that shouldn't be a problem. Doesn't know much yet. Sometimes it takes a second for these guys to figure everything out. Okay, bear with me while I do this. I haven't done this very many times. In fact, this is the 4th time I've ever added a machine to an HMC. And so I was looking at connections, service processor status, and it says pending authentication password updates required. I don't do this very often, but that's ringing a bell. Somewhere in here there's a way to reset the password. I can't remember how to do it. It can definitely talk to that thing because I can launch the ASMI. You can look at the ASMI from the HMC, by the way. We're looking better now. Pending authentication. So I went into connections, reset or remove connections, and I reset the connection. I don't know why that was necessary, but now we're pending authentication and we can go to update the password, and I'm going to leave it as admin on the record so that I don't forget that. Whatever this is will also be admin. Now the HMC should have full access to this machine. Yeah, we're seeing more options showing up as it's updating, and we're done. It knows the machine is powered off. think we should probably give it a new name. Let's name it Power6 2. The other one was called Power6 1, and you know, maybe it'll be back someday. I'm also horrified to tell you that this thing reports itself as not IBM capable, but you know, you never know. Just an interesting oddity I wanted to show you once you're under HMC management. So remember in this power restart control area, I was able to change the IBM boot mode thing to D. Now that we're under HMC control, if I go into power restart, power on off system, I don't have that option. I can't control it anymore. Got something about default partition environment. In fact, all these options are different. I think boot up was 8 and now it's 6. So we got to go do that on the HMC. So we come in here and select our machine. We go to tasks, properties. Properties are a task apparently. Power on parameters, and here is all our stuff. So we're going to do IBM IPL source D. Okay. I'm just going to make sure that's stuck. It did not. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Try it again. This is not. This does not bode well. Why can't it persist that? I do not like this. Let's go back to our old friend ASMI. Oh man, I don't have any control now. I can't even change D or anything. Once I took this under HMC management, I wonder if this was a massive mistake. Oh, those different copies of the firmware labeled T and P stand for permanent and temporary. That actually all makes sense now. I don't know. I'm just going to power it on, and we'll see what happens. This is a little concerning. This is pretty cool, though. You can see the reference codes, and it tells you a little bit about it. It is starting standby power on transition file primary. I can hear it starting up in there. These will roll through. Maybe we'll be able to get access to a console. I think eventually when the machine is eligible for a console, you can kind of connect to it. We'll see. It's fully powered up now, and it has this bizarre reference code, LP equals 00001, and the HMC doesn't know what that means. However, if we go into properties now, capabilities, now that it's on and it's learned more about the machine, it does say it's IBM capable. I was about to call it for the night, but now I'm getting excited. We will keep going. Oh, maybe the whole problem was I was always looking at machines that were off. I don't know. I think maybe I had to set this to manual mode, and then D would have persisted. Either way, I can't figure out how to get a terminal, but I can make an LPAR. That's a whole thing. Hopefully we don't have to talk about it. I'm going to mess around a little bit. Big developments down here. You see this? This is a 5250 virtual console. Remember how I was just saying we hopefully don't have to talk about LPARs? Well, we got to talk about LPARs. An LPAR is a logical partition. You can think of it as a VM. And basically, from the hardware management console's perspective, if you have an install of an OS and it's taking up the whole machine, that's like a default LPAR. So there's always one VM running on the machine, and you can divide the machine up into various LPARs. Think about it as multiple VMs running on one machine. So when we're in here looking at the list of my power servers, I've got the Power6, it's operating. I can click into the Power6, and it's got LPARs. So this is the default LPAR. We've got something like 16 gigs of RAM, and for some reason, I didn't do anything. It believes it's IBM. So that part is good. Once you're looking at your LPARs, and we're just going to have one default one, you can go to console window, and you can open a 5250 console window, and that's how we get here. And we've got a problem. It's in an error state. So it's asking us which LPAR to connect to. I only have one. This 10-43F94. Is that my serial number? Probably. Anyway, we can't connect because obviously the disks aren't initialized. There is no operating system, but we have an LPAR. Now, when we go into here and configure the LPAR, we can mess around with the IPL source. Let's put this on D. And I believe I'm going to want to do manual because I need to get into something called DST. Yes, another acronym. DST stands for Dedicated Service Tools, and I believe with the media I have in the drive, if we boot from that, which means we're booting from IPL source D, which just means remote media, and the HMC calls the operating mode the key lock position, which is probably historical, or maybe some of the machines have a key that puts it into manual versus normal, but my machine doesn't have a physical key. We should be able to get into DST, the dedicated service tools, which should let us mess around with attempting to view some hard drives. So it's going to save that configuration, and I believe I can reload. Yes, let's restart this partition. Immediate, that's fine. Do it. So what's happening is the server is on, but we're restarting the one VM essentially that's running on it. And hopefully it'll start up in mode D and try to read that DVD-ROM. I don't know. Let's see what a console window does now. Okay, the partition is starting. I'll be back. The dream here is that it's going to load from the DVD-ROM. I don't know if I'm going to be given an option for which remote media to use, or it's going to look through all of them like a PC would and find the one it can boot from. And then this console will hopefully connect to that instance of the licensed internal code running. Are you following along? Folks, it is my great pleasure to inform you that I believe this is IBM I running from the DVD-ROM asking me what language I would like. And of course I would like language 2924. We did it, boys. Remember how the partition said it was starting? It eventually got into a running state. I would try to come into that same console menu experience and select it, and it would just kick me out. But I don't know, 5-10 minutes later, it finally fully booted up, and we're here. I'm gonna, you can kind of click anywhere. I'm gonna click here. Let's try to press enter. Got a little clock, a watch, I should say. Oh man, yes. I would like language feature 2924. Oh baby. Yes. This is beautiful. It's asking me if I would like to install the licensed internal code or work with dedicated service tools. We're going to go with number 2. I'm pretty sure the DST lets me do like some disk management. Let's see what it thinks about those System X SAS disks I put in there a million hours ago. There's a login and password, service tools user and password. Are you kidding me? I haven't looked it up. Let's just do admin. Oh, admin. No. Let me go look what the default is. This is ridiculous. Guess what the default username and password is? That's right. QSECOFR, case sensitive. Why have that? It's the DVD. It's the install media. We're staying calm. We like IBM. Work with disk units. 2. I guess I would like to initialize and format a disk unit. It sees both of them. I'm going to say select both of them and then enter. I'm getting a problem report. Cannot determine if unit is possibly configured. I would like to F10 ignore problems and continue. So this is actually a big deal. If it's going to do a low-level format and do what I want, I'm actually ecstatic it can even see drives. It might take like 12 hours. Low-level formats are very, very slow and intensive, so we are going to F10 initialize and format. Combined error attention report. We got an I/O failure. I would like to see the detailed report. Contact your service representative. Yeah, I saw that coming. We are technically, sort of, running IBM I though, which is pretty exciting. I think we're going to have to low-level format these things on a Linux machine, if that even works. I'm just getting back out of these menus here. Let's just install the license internal code. What do you think? It is letting me choose the drives as a valid destination when I'm trying to install the licensed internal code, but I highly suspect this just won't work. I only chose one of the drives because I'm scared now. Let's do install and initialize. F10 to continue. There's no way this is going to work. Yeah, I think we're in bad shape. After I initiated that install, we're just stuck here for about 20 or more minutes. And then the LPAR went into an error state. If we look at the ref code, it is saying the system licensed internal code detected an input-output processor programming problem. The IOP dump may have been initiated. No one knows. So yeah, as expected, I don't think those hard drives are going to be any good for us here. One more thing to try before I give up and go to bed here. This is a copy of IBM Standalone Diagnostics disk, version 7.1. It is a slimmed down version of the AIX kernel, I believe. And based on my reading, theoretically it might be able to low-level format some drives for us. So I'm going to pop this in the machine, keep the boot mode on D, and we'll connect a terminal. That didn't really work. I powered it back on, and it went through a bunch of confusing phases I had never seen before, like unavailable and hardware discovery, and then it powered itself off. So let's go take a look at the logs. They're called serviceable events. The last one, this is classic. When you shut the machine off, it likes to say detected AC loss, even though it shut itself off, and it horrifies you and you think something's wrong. I mean, something is wrong. We got problems, but let's see if the LPAR has more specific logs. It doesn't. That's annoying. Yeah, I don't know why that didn't work. Because I believe that diagnostics disk is AIX, let's try changing this default partition environment to AIX. Power back on. I wouldn't say it's going well. It's in a recovery status, which I've never seen before. The save area and service processor is not synchronized with the HMC database. I have no idea what that means. I was sitting in here waiting for this to boot, and it literally has like a PC speaker deal. It was literally beeping in there, screaming that something was wrong. Hopefully that's just because I switched from IBM I over to an AIX environment. I don't really know what an environment is. This is good. This is good. This is very good. Here I am at the serial console, and it was actually booting into, the name of this thing escapes me, but that's why it was beeping. It tests the speakers when it boots up, as you can see, speaker. So it wasn't complaining. The HMC is a little confused, but it is booting into AIX, which means it is booting from that diagnostic CD I found, and it's a version that this thing can hopefully use. And we will try to see if we can format these drives. Okay, it has booted. No idea what I downloaded here. Let's see. I mean, it technically came from this page. They've got a ton of different versions for power machines that are far newer than mine. And I finally chose this one simply because it said System P Power 4 or later. Got a Power 6. And it had a mention of eServer i5, so I felt like there was hope with this one. IBM's usually a little more specific than this stuff. Granted, I'm working with pretty old gear here. It is clearly a dedicated diagnostics disk, so I'm going to go with 1, diagnostic routines. I guess I'll go with a VT100. Can't go wrong there, right? We're okay. Alright, this is not what I want, so this is just going to test the system or whatever. Let's do F3. We want maybe task selection. Oh yeah, disk maintenance. It's looking promising. Format media. That sounds promising. It can see both disks. That is good. Let's just do one of them. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I can't send the F7 command. That's not good. To hit F7 in this situation over the serial console, you can do escape 7. Just learn that. Let's format without certify. Definitely don't care about that. I don't want to format it. I want to do way more stuff to it. I want to change its sector size. It's funny, F3 works. That's no problem. I'm going to try to go to the RAID Array Manager setting. Yes, the IBM SAS Disk Array Manager. So the RAID array, this is very impressive, by the way. The amount of work that went into all of this is mind-blowing. So we can see both disks. I'm going to go to Diagnostics and Recovery Options, and I can format physical disk media. Let's look at what it sees in here. There are no items of this. What? We do have the H disks, though. It's possible we can't low-level format these particular disks. I want to know the sector size. Okay, I'm just going to figure it out. I'll be back. It's a couple days later. I couldn't figure out how to low-level format these sectors, so I'm going to cut out a bunch of very long, drawn-out, boring footage. Coors Lights might have been flowing a little too much last Saturday. And I'm in bad shape. It has taken me an hour to get to this AIX screen again. I forgot to persist my baud rate settings for the MRV console, so I did that again. The IP that I assigned the service processor on the Power6 does not persist across reboots. So there must have been some battery I missed, which would have been a lot more convenient to replace when the machine was in here, so we'll deal with that later. The HMC is totally confused about the machine now. It keeps going into this like incomplete state that I can't clear. I've restarted everything. I had to recover the partition information because something went very bad when I powered all this stuff off the other night. Anyway, I'm loading that diagnostics disk again, and it's being kind of weird. It's spitting out a bunch of, I mean, it's starting AIX in the kernel, but it's spitting out a bunch of progress codes, and then it's hanging here at 0539. The documentation says it's just a progress code. It's off doing something. It's not an error condition. Oh, it came back to life. Okay. I have no idea why it's spitting these out. I should go figure that out. It just says that it does this. I don't remember this happening anytime I've ever booted AIX. We're getting back in. Like I was saying, I didn't have a lot of luck well, I didn't have any luck with this thing. But there was a section upon reviewing footage that I should have investigated further, so we're going to do that together now. In task selection, down in disk maintenance, display or alter sector. Sounds promising. Ooh, okay. It's warning me about how serious this is, which it is. No, wait, how did I miss this the other night? Well, we'll see. We'll see if it works. Let's do the first one. Oh, unable to open the selected disk. Well, that's disappointing. Let's try the other one. Okay, go Google this. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. It's saying this just lets you actually view data in a sector and alter it, which is pretty wild. So you can do like low-level corruption fixes and stuff. That's not quite what we want. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything obvious. So I'm going to shut this down, hopefully in a way that doesn't drive the HMC crazy again. And then we're going to go with plan B. So the plan is we're going to take one of these System X disks, we're going to get it in this Dell caddy, and we're going to slap it in my Dell R720 because it can read SAS disks, and we're going to low-level format it there. I've been withholding some information from you. I do actually have two eServer iSeries drives, theoretically formatted correctly, but they're SCSI, which is of no use to me because that Power6 is SAS, and it is the only machine I have that is entitled to run IBM I. So I'm going to slap this thing in that Dell server, and the journey will continue. The OS didn't detect it. I put it in there while the machine was running. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Let's see, what do we got? It has a hardware RAID controller, which we're looking at right here. It hasn't been flashed for software, which might be a problem for what we're about to do. Yeah, I think I need to make like another disk group for this thing, which might be a big issue when I'm low-level formatting it. This is not good. Mess around a little bit. This is interesting. It sees it, but says failed. Why? Tell me more. You know, I did partially format them. Yeah, I started a format with the AIX tool, and I never finished it. That could be possibly part of the problem here. I don't really know how to use this tool. Yeah, that's a problem. And then you gotta pull up the keyboard to Control N to the next page. I just put another one in there, and now you can see I've got about 1 terabyte of unconfigured physical disks. It's another one of these System X. I have like 10 of them. Not one of the two I partially formatted earlier in the video. So the question is this hardware RAID controller in the Dell R720 going to pass this in as a disk to the software? And honestly, I don't really remember. Let's find out though. So the other machine is fully loaded, and it has a RAID controller in there that lets the software totally run everything. You need to do that for TrueNAS. There might be a bay internally I could put a SAS drive in if we have to. So that machine might save us. So I'm reading through this guide of someone that wants to turn their 520 sectors into 512. Lucky bastard. And it's sort of as I suspected. He's warning, don't under any circumstances use RAID controllers to perform these operations. It looks really easy. There's this SG format tool. Let me go see if this exists on BSD because my TrueNAS machine is running BSD. It does have a RAID controller, but it's passing through all of the control of it to the software. It's been flashed in a special way. Bought it on eBay a million years ago. And the R720 doesn't have one of those. That's why For example, you saw just now that the RAID controller knows about the drive, but the software does not. None of these are my 1 terabyte drive. These are all my existing drives because the RAID controller needs to configure it first before Linux can see it. I'm on the TrueNAS box here, and these SG format tools do exist. They're already on the machine. So we're going to shut this machine down, and as I recall, there might be a SAS bay internally. Like I said, all the bays on the front are fully populated with drives that are part of ZFS pools. So if I pull one out, the pool will get into a degraded state. I don't want to deal with that. So let's see. It's probably pretty loud in here. That HMC is ripping away, but I'm sure as hell not turning it off because it takes like 15 minutes to get back into the UI. So the problem with this one is all these drives are populated and they're part of storage arrays, and I'm not going to sacrifice. Theoretically, I could pop one out, but I'm not going to sacrifice the integrity of all my data for this project. So it's been a while since I've been into this one, probably years. But as I recall, there were 2 drive bays internally. In fact, there's an SSD hosting the TrueNAS software in there somewhere. Let me take a look around. Oh yeah, there is. But not going to be big enough for my drive. We're going to do some really sketchy shit here. I need to like get a fan maybe. I think this thing just pops out. Yes. So theoretically, I could plug that drive into this cable. Oh, this is so sketchy. I think I could slip it down in there. So the problem is I care about everything. I care a lot about this machine. And these enterprise servers, they want the air to be blowing past them. They want the lid to be on. This is so sketchy. Let's see here. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, I went and looked through all my stuff. I don't think this is going to work for us. I don't want to do anything to sacrifice the integrity of what I've got on this machine. These are the little cables that go from the SAS backplane. SAS, it takes SATA drives too, and scoots it over to this little drive caddy. Now, if I had a longer one, I could snake it out the back and have the drive out there with a fan on it, but I just don't have one of these. And so I'm going to put all this back together, and we're going to go down an even deeper IBM rabbit hole. We're going to explore something called the Virtual I/O Server. Now, I powered on my really big P5 here. Let me show you its capabilities. That's how I learned about this, actually. And for the record, it is not IBM I capable, which is very sad. We got this Virtual I/O Server capable thing, and luckily, if we go look at the Power6, it is also Virtual I/O Server capable. So, as you'll recall, each server is divided into LPARs. So if we go look at my big P5, I might have more than one in here. Yeah, I've got 2 LPARs. Both of them are running AIX. You can divide up the memory and the processor. I think I was messing around in a video. I gave this thing 8.125 gigabytes and 2.5 CPUs. Pretty sweet. So hopefully we can divide up this Power6 into a VIOS partition and then the IBM I partition. Now, in theory, I can install Virtual I/O Server in an LPAR on the Power6. I think it runs on AIX. And what it does is it can expose hard drives or storage to other LPARs on the box. And my understanding is that it will magically do the conversion between a 512 sector size and a 520 sector size. So I can use 512 sector hard drives, physical disks in the machine. The Virtual I/O Server will oversee them, and I can expose a fraction of those drives to the IBM I LPAR, and it should see them as legitimate disks. This is all theoretical. Now, while that machine is capable, there might be some activation keys in the mix, which might actually halt this whole process. But you'll be happy to know I bought some I-series hard drives on eBay, SAS drives that are on the way. I guess this is plan C. That's plan D. That's appropriate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bunch of drives in that machine. I'm going to go find a copy of Virtual I/O Server. I don't know how hard that's going to be. I'm going to install it, and then I'll bring you back. This is not a tutorial. I'm just kind of winging this, but if we go look at the Power6, what I've done is I've created a VIOS partition. I named it that. And you can see it's a Virtual I/O Server. And if we go look at its properties, I've given it a quarter of the processor, which luckily this Power6 machine is entitled to do. I've given it 4 gigs out of our 16 gigs of RAM. I have no idea if that's high or low or whatever. And it has physical access to the RAID controller. I don't think I want to give that to the other LPAR. So basically I'm going to come in here and configure this one to not have RAID controller access and all that, but I'm going to leave it off for now. I'm going to go try to find a copy of this software and get it installed. First I'm going to throw a bunch of hard drives in there. Unfortunately not the ones that I partially formatted. I guess I will throw these in, we can fix them later. So yeah, I guess I'll throw this healthy 1 terabyte drive in there. I'll put the 2 that I have in a partially formatted state. I suspect the VIOS software will be able to deal with it, because AIX could see them earlier. And then, this might be a total non-starter, because I might try to do it, and it's going to ask for activation codes, which of course I don't have, even though the machine is literally allowed to do this. But I got nothing to do while I wait for my eBay order, so let's give it a shot. The only version of VIOS I can find is on the archive, and it says it's 4.6 gigs, which should fit on a DVD. However, when I download the ISO, it's something like 4.9 gigs. So you can install these via the HMC, but it's infinitely more complicated. I have to get the LPAR on a network. Yeah, it's way harder. So I'm hitting it with good old image burn, and I can overburn or truncate. Let me go Google what overburn means. Is that where the burn and image burn came from? No, you're just burning disks. We're gonna overburn. Immediately failed.
Oh no!
Image burn has some pretty good audio. Let's try truncating. There's just no way this is gonna work. It's done burning and it's verifying now. That little oh no clip was not me doing some cute editing. That's literally what image burnt. Chloe's rolling screwdrivers around. Here's the sound it makes. There's another screwdriver. Here's the sound it makes when it's done burning your image. The ISO mounts. That's good. There's hope. I think I might actually be getting somewhere. This is a virtual console to the VIOS LPAR that I created. The ISO I burned to that DVD is in the DVD-ROM. The unfortunate part is in order... So, let me back up. All these LPARs, so I've got 2 in this list over here, you give them access to physical resources on the machine. And I've given this thing access to the RAID controller, and that was the only way for it to see the CD-ROM, because the CD-ROM, I think, is plugged into the array controller. It's a SATA CD-ROM. Anyway, this thing couldn't see it until I gave it access to the RAID controller. Of course, I need that for the drives. I don't want my IBM LPAR to see the RAID controller, which means I can't give it a CD-ROM, which means I have no way to get IBM on there, but we'll cross that bridge if we get there. As you can see though, welcome to the virtual I/O server. So in this setup, I do see the reference codes. This is just AIX behind the scenes, I think. I do see the reference codes over here, but of course they're not going to the console, so that was pretty weird earlier. This thing is very slow. In hindsight, I could have given it all of the processor, because it's the only thing running right now, and then I could have reduced that later. Let's see here. Install settings. I wasn't going to show you this, but it does see a disk. I don't know what to do with any of this. Let her rip. Our next acronym, BOS, Base Operating System. That's what IBM calls when you install AIX, essentially. Ooh, it's gonna be slow. We've made it to 1%. We're about 34 minutes in and it's 56% complete, theoretically. It's getting kind of late, but I think I can handle it. I'll be back when this is done. I didn't make any choices about any aspect of this install. The good news is I also wasn't prompted for any activation codes or anything like that. So maybe if the machine is already capable of it, I don't have to worry about that. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see what happens. I'm getting a little nervous. We're 70 minutes in, and you can see we were at 75% task complete. It's been over 12 minutes since anything has progressed. I was panicking. You can kind of do this, and then it'll spit out another line. Even Chloe's starting to go look for more hard drives. The light on the DVD-ROM is coming on, so it's doing something. So maybe this step is just really slow, and I did truncate that DVD. Probably shouldn't have even bothered trying that. I guess I'll give it another 10 minutes before I go to bed, but yeah, this isn't good. It's been stuck on this OC54 code for a very long time. I'm looking at the Power Systems Progress Codes document, 150 pages. And OC54 means installing either base operating system or additional packages. It's been stuck there for pushing 20 minutes. It has been 20 minutes. I think I'll give it 10 more minutes. I don't really like leaving these things running overnight. Might have to abandon this and try the HMC network install. It's been over 30 minutes since it made any progress, so I suspect my install media is corrupt. You'd think it would be smart enough to tell you that, but 30 minutes for a single step is bad even by AIX standards and power system standards, so it's almost midnight. I'm going to call it for the night, and we'll be back at it tomorrow figuring out what we can do about this. It's the next evening, and the plan is to try to boot this over USB, but every time I power it off and power it back on, it loses its IP. I have to go fix that on the serial console, and then it gets into this incomplete state, which means the HMC is out of sync with the processor, the service processor on the machine, and it loses all of its LPAR information. So I loaded up ASMI, and sure enough, it is complaining about some time of day hardware issue. I think it's confused about the time entirely. And this is the only error, so there is a battery on that main board that I should have replaced. So I'm gonna go do that. My existing Power6 is officially a parts rig. I had to steal its battery because I didn't have any spares of this type. Sure enough, it was dead, about 100 millivolts. And that is quite the operation. Of course, with my dumb rack setup, I have to unrack stuff on top of the box. You take the lid off, then you gotta pull all the fans out and get the shroud out. My RAID cache battery seems to work. It was flashing even when the machine didn't have any power at all. I'm waiting for the HMC to come up, but I set the IP on this thing and then I power cycled it, so let's see if it could persist it. Yes, it remembers. It is 192.168.150. Okay, that's good. That's one problem solved. The virtual I/O server was never going to work because of activation codes. I'll show you specifically why later. Even better, I'll show you why now. The HMC makes it abundantly clear that it doesn't think the Power6 machine has the right activation codes entered to do the virtual I/O server. So it obviously has the capability, but it wants the activation codes for pretty much anything. Now, it's possible Virtual I/O Server has some sort of grace period like IBMI does. I'm not entirely sure. It is something I'd like to explore in the future. So I was feeling pretty downtrodden after days of dealing with this, and I said, well, I'm going to set up another IBMI partition and convince myself I can at least see the DST tools again, the install media for VR6. And look what we're looking at. That new System X drive, well, new to the machine, 1 terabyte drive, same as the other two. It saw it, and it claims to be initializing and formatting it. It's very slow. It's like 10 minutes every 5%, but I'll take it. Not going to get my hopes up, but further than we got before. So remember how I had 2 drives in the machine initially, and this thing could see them before, but it failed right away when we tried to initialize and format them. And then later, in my more modern server, I only tested one of them in that RAID controller. I didn't touch the other one. I think one of them was actually maybe messed up this whole time. That's my theory right now, and then it kicked this thing out of its installer. I don't know. I've never seen it get this far. It says wait for next display or press F16. I don't have an F16 key. I was getting really nervous when it was sitting at 0 for a long time, but it did bump to 5%. I need to walk in the other room and see if I can see any LED indicators on the drives or anything, maybe the CD-ROM. It seems like I always start making progress when it's really late, and then I have to run some long-running tasks. You can see Chloe's already pretty tired over here. That's okay. If I have to leave it running overnight to do this, I will. Well, it got 36% of the way in and decided it was done. Disk unit I/O failure. And if you view the detailed report, just like last time, it says there was an error attempting to redirect the disk and you better contact your service representative. Was kind of surprised it even bothered getting this far in the first place and that it can even see these drives. My understanding was wouldn't even get this far with these 512 byte sector drives. I do have the drives coming from eBay, but I'm pretty disappointed. I've been putting in pretty late nights for several days straight trying to get this to work from any angle I can. Behind the scenes, I am going to try to low-level format one of those drives from the RAID controller on the R720, which you're not supposed to do, but you never know. So what's this mean? I think I gotta wait for the drives, and that means this video is just going to take longer to come out because I would really like to have IBMI installed in this video. I had much bigger plans. We're like an hour and a half in, and I thought we'd be programming RPG, getting some Hello World stuff going an hour and a half in, but we'll see. I have 2 paths here, so we definitely need to get IBMI installed, and the hard drives won't show up for a few days, and then I'm gone all next weekend. It's Tuesday. I'm going to be out of town Thursday through Sunday, so no filming then. But, you know, it takes as long as it takes. It's kind of weird to do an interlude like this in the... Hopefully it's not an interlude. Hopefully we're not 50% of the way there. You never know. I like long videos. So we'll see. I got to wait for these drives to show up. We'll try to get IBM I installed. I'll bring you along for that. And I'd really like to do some RPG programming, some OG style with not the freeform stuff. RPG is really weird. All I've done is read about it, watch a couple videos. You could do a whole video on that, which might be the right move. I have been rambling for too long. I'll be back when I have a hard drive that I think is going to work in this friggin' IBM I LPAR. The drives finally showed up, and a couple things to note. It's a little small. I thought they were 3.5-inch drives. They're clearly not, though they are IBM I SAS drives. We can solve that problem. I'll show you how later. Now, clearly labeled, tested for power systems, IBM I, but it's got that pesky 528 number on there. I think this is a 528 byte sector drive, which might be fine. I think that's just a byte sector size IBM used in RAID arrays, and I believe I'll be able to make a RAID array, because that thing has a RAID controller, and IBM I will happily read data off of that array. That's the theory, anyway. These guys probably came out of some really big, like, disk shelf units or something. That's why they're the funny byte sector. Something kind of funny happened. I accidentally bought 18 of them. I thought I was buying two 3.5-inch SAS drives for $80 shipped, which was a little steep, but they shipped faster than other postings, and actually isn't that bad of a deal for these old IBM I drives. Turns out about 18 of them for $80 shipped, which I guess makes the deal a little sweeter. But obviously my machine doesn't take these smaller drives, so you can buy these little adapters, and it sort of positions the drive in the right place, and then you put this in the tray. I've got some others if this one doesn't do the trick, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine, so I will do that now. Bunch of messing around later, and I think I've got it. This tray wasn't going to work. It just doesn't line up right. But I had this fancier one, which does appear to line up right. Was using an existing drive just to line up and make sure the positioning is good. I think it is. I unfortunately can't get screws on that side. So the edge connector is going to have to hold it in. We'll be fine. You can see right down in there, barely, that sliver of silver coloring is where the screw hole is on this drive. And there's another one over here. So if I really need to, I could drill through one of these so that I can get screws in there. Hello, Chloe. Well, it fit in the machine, so it's in there. I just gave the Power6 some juice, waiting for the service processor to connect here. Then I'll boot it up. If that goes smooth, I'm going to attempt to install IBM I right on that drive as I have been with the other drives, which might not work. And if that doesn't work, I'll get more drives in there. I'll use that AIX Diagnostics tool to build a RAID array, and we'll try to install IBM I on the RAID array. And in the meantime, I'm going to do some research and figure out if I'm even going about this the right way, but I'll let you know what happens. The IBM I dedicated service tools and the installer couldn't see that disk at all, so I've loaded up the AIX Diagnostics disk. And if we go into the RAID manager, IBM SAS Disk Array Manager, and I list the configuration of the backplane, I'm presented with a little bit of hope. It at least sees the drive. So there's my 283 gig little drive, just like this I put in there with my fancy little adapter. So that means we do have at least physical connectivity to the drive, which is encouraging. So now I'm going to go figure out how to use this tool to reinitialize a single member array. I guess I'll be back. We might be getting somewhere. So I deleted the existing disk array, and now I'm going to create an array candidate pdisk. I think IBM calls a pdisk a disk with the 528 byte sectors that they use in arrays. And if I go to my backplane, I can see that it is an array candidate. I need to do escape 7. Okay. I think it's selected. Yes. Oh, baby. Okay. It's formatting it. And the dream here is that with a proper array, remember it said that it was in a failed state, so there wasn't much chance of IBM I seeing that. We're going to format this one drive. I suppose I could have thrown more in there. I've got 18 of them. Get a valid array, and then we'll see if IBM I installer can see it. While we wait, I had originally bought a couple of these adapters for the R720. So I had it sitting in there like that, and I actually couldn't find this one. This is a second one, and I found it while I've been waiting for this thing to format. So we might, in another world I would have put another drive in, but maybe that'll be the next video. These Dell trays are really nice. I don't think it's meant to be this way, but they can take SATA and SAS drives, the backplanes, depending on your server. Mine can take both. So I use a bunch of SATA drives, and I have these SSDs, and so I had kind of researched before I bought them years ago. And don't make fun of the blues. I know they're they're crap. Thought I was going to need a little adapter, but you can actually just put 2 of these screws in. These things weigh nothing. They're not going to move around. And then you can just use the normal tray. No adapter needed. So I think what happened there is we created a P disk, which I think IBM is calling a physical disk. And we need to create the array that that disk is backing, so to speak. So I'm going to create a SAS disk array. RAID 0, because I have 1 drive. It recommends 256 kilobyte stripe size. No idea. Going for it. And then I believe I need to select my candidate here, which has been zeroed out. That's what took the last hour. Escape 7 to select it and enter. Don't know what to do now. It's telling me what to do. Press enter after making all desired changes. Oh, geez. Okay. Oh, that was quick. I like that. That's good. This is Smitty, or Smit. I can't remember the distinction. Anyway, it's some AIX stuff. Several of you will be either excited or having PTSD. This thing is advanced. You can add new disks to the SAS array. Okay, so we have a P disk as an array member. I think I've done enough. Oh yeah, this is looking good. I learned all this in the past like 2 hours, by the way. So we have the H disk. Maybe it stands for hard disk. Can't really tell. It's basically the logical disk. And so there's an underlying P disk, a physical disk. And IBM, my understanding, is going to be happy to look at this H disk. If we have any luck, which we have had none thus far. All right, I think we're done with this bad boy. Let's start up the IBM LPAR. To give you a little glimpse into this nightmare I'm dealing with, it takes roughly 10 minutes from the time I start this IBM LPAR to the time when I can actually interact with it. It's been setting the time of day for a while, for example. This will be the moment of truth. We're getting into the dedicated service tools, or DST, and y'all remember our good friend QSECOFR. The IBM system has profiles for users that are logging in, and this thing actually stands for Security Officer, I think. On IBM, anything that starts with a Q, users, libraries, we're going to have to get into this in the next video because this video is getting out of control. That means it was produced by IBM. So some of the default stuff that would come on the system, IBM would prefix it with Q. I think I remember reading that they just thought it was pretty rare someone would need Q in front of their thing, and maybe they're right. We're going to see a lot of Qs in our future. Now, I'm either going to be in a really good mood or a really bad mood. Let's go to work with disk units. Initialize and format a disk. This is no good. It can't see the... Oh boy. It can't see the disk. This is no good. What are we going to do about this? Well, I'm going to have to boot up that diag disk again. I won't bother you. I'll just attempt to figure it out. I wonder why it could see these System X disks and sort of interact with them and then just failed. But it can't see my fancy new IBM disks. I wonder if I should make a RAID array of these. I'll let you know what I come up with. I'm over a week into this project and I finally decided to apply the last few brain cells I have and use the scientific method and maybe try a couple options on how I format these drives to get IBM to see them. I've got 2 drives in there. I've already formatted one as an array candidate, and I'm formatting this one in JBOD mode. Literally stands for just a bunch of disks. Technical term, not joking. I'll explain what that means when it's done. I'm starting to think about it. I don't think IBM wants to see drives that are part of a RAID because IBM wants to do its own disk management. I think it does like a RAID 5 or something like that. And you would think I would remember that after reading all these books. I've read each of these twice. To be fair, they're not really a how-to guide, they're an architecture guide. So these are the 2 drives you watched me put in the caddies. And they're in a partial RAID array. I started RAIDing them together, and then I realized that's probably not what I want, so I canceled it. Or I tried to cancel it. I couldn't figure out how to cancel it, so I pulled them out. 2 more drives are in there. After this is done, they'll have been formatted in 2 different ways. Hopefully one or both are the way IBM wants. And on the way, one of my drives was just bad. The machine wouldn't recognize it. Always buy in bulk, fellas. The formats are done. Each format takes an hour, by the way. So I'm looking at everything the controller knows about, and it's got some missing disks as part of its array. Those were these guys I pulled out. I can't figure out how to make this thing forget about them. And then I formatted one as a P disk. This one is actually in there. It's active. It is an array candidate. It's been zeroed. And then the one I just finished formatting in JBOD mode is something called HDisk0. It's available. the more I'm thinking about it, IBMI is almost certainly only going to see this one, which is the reason it could see the System X disks. They weren't part of a RAID array. And the hope here is, because this is an IBMI drive that theoretically has a sector size that IBMI likes, we'll actually be able to install on it. I'm going to shut this LPAR down. We'll see what the IBMI LPAR thinks about it. The moment of truth. Work with disk units. Initialize and format disk unit. Are you kidding me? You can't see him? This thing's busted. I hate this thing. Remember how my Dell R510 can take those smaller drives and it's got a RAID controller that can pass them through and let me mess with them? Well, because I accidentally bought these smaller drives, one of those is in there now. And if we run the SG format command on it, we can see it is indeed 528 byte sectors. My current thinking is that IBMI does not like these 528 byte sector drives. I don't even know why it entertained the idea of a 512 byte sector drive earlier with those System X drives. Not sure why I can't get it to see anything now. It is possible that the drives in there need to be like really formatted, really wiped. IBMI is like seeing something on them from a previous IBMI install, though I'm fairly certain the one I passed through was indeed wiped. I have a funny, not so funny story for you. Remember how I was really concerned about this R510 machine? It's got all my data on it. But I'm not going to sacrifice the integrity of all my data for this project. So, well, I shut off the R720 last night, and I accidentally pulled out a drive from the R520 while it was running. So now my very large, many terabyte ZFS pool is resilvering. So basically this video is cursed. But you know, that's fine. I'm following this SG format guide and I'm going to try to resize this thing to 520. The guide said it might not like this. I don't know. It's going to do it. And I'm doing it in a TMUX window so that I can leave this terminal console and not get stuck halfway through, obviously. Oh, it's doing it, dude. Hope that's the drive I think it is. No luck with that so far. This is going to totally annihilate this drive and rewrite all its sectors to 520 bytes. And it might take like over a day. So I'll be back. Just kidding. Less than 20 minutes later, we're 42.18% done. Who needs sleep? In the meantime, I have very exciting news. I don't know, less than an hour later, and my ZFS pool is done analyzing itself and was able to catch up. I hadn't written much to the pool since I accidentally pulled the drive out, and good old Gemini 2 is in great shape. All the disks are online, everything is cool, so that's a relief. All right, something like 50 minutes later, we're done. Let's see what it says about this drive. It claims that it is 520 byte sectors now. Let's throw it in the Power6, see if IBMI has anything to say about it. Chloe and I have some developments here. I couldn't get my IBMI Slick DST to recognize anything but my 512 byte formatted drives, and those I couldn't install on, as you've seen over the course of this 18-hour video. So I just started throwing drives in there. I wasn't able to get that thing to see that 520 byte sector drive we just reformatted. These top three are 512 byte sector drives, which I'm loosely guessing based on the serial number, and I know that my old version of IBMI couldn't install that. Oh, one second. This is the IBM Slick code for IBMI 7.1, and it can see other stuff. These two are some of these, and I'm not entirely sure which ones. I'm guessing they're the 528 byte sector drives. On the front with the disks, the numbering starts with 3, and this thing is doing 01, 02, 3, 4, 5. So basically, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking at the serial numbers on the ones I have on the bench here. Always buy in bulk. And yeah, these are some of these IBMI drives. So I haven't gotten this far yet. I was about to film an outro where I just failed, so let's do this and then do that anyway. It doesn't know if it's configured. That's fine. F10 to continue. And then we're going to attempt to initialize and format. Oh, okay. We've been fooled before though. So it is formatting one of the drives. I don't know if I needed to do this. I probably should have just hopped into the installer, but we'll see what happens. Right, dude? Oh yeah. We've gotten to 40% formatted. This is the furthest I've ever seen anything about IBMI do what I expect I don't even want to jinx it. Dude, look how tired she is. We've been doing this for like a week and a half. It's still moving. I think I have a handle on which drive I'm formatting. I was talking about using the scientific method. Well, I was getting pretty desperate. That went out the window real quick last night. However, I did label all my drives. This was the PDISC candidate. So this was in there, formatted as a PDISC array candidate. I could never get the old version of IBM Slick v6R1, I guess it is, to see this guy. He's obviously not in there. I've also determined by going and looking at the machine, there's only one drive active right now during this format. It's the first one. It is the one we formatted to 520 byte sectors, but you'll remember it saw 2 of those IBM drives. The other one is the JBOD, so my theory, one of my theories, was correct. I don't have that drive with me. It's in the machine. I do have my sticky note from last night. So it's very possible that a drive formatted as a JBOD, even though it's a 528 byte sector drive, would at least work with IBM 7.1, but we'll never know because I'm never going to test that. 50% complete. 95%, come on. Oh, it finished. Let me get out of DST. All right, I went to the install license internal code option, and now I'm waiting for it, I think. I think it's going to be prudent to choose the drive I just formatted, and they're of course in a different order from the DST, but I just reviewed the footage, and it's this one that ends in FYF. So we're going to select that as our load source device. It's not complaining. I'm going to press F10, and then we will install licensed internal code and initialize system, option 2. All data will be destroyed. It's probably going to reformat again. I'm going to be up till 2 a.m. F10 to continue. Can you believe it? It's absolutely cruising. 60% done. 3 minutes in. The real fun is about to begin, I think. We've got a disk configuration attention report. It says new disk configuration. I remember reading something about this in the install manual, which I did read, believe it or not. So let's view the detailed report. That's right. Okay. Long story short, it is complaining that I only set this thing up with 1 disk. IBM does not like that. It's all about uptime, resiliency, and everything. And let me read through this. Right, it's just giving me a bunch of information about how to add new disks. I'll hopefully do that later in other videos if this goes well. So let's get out of here. IPL or install the system. I'm going to go read the documentation again. I might have to... I don't have the other disks burnt. This whole time I've been talking about IBM 7.1. Actually, I'm installing IBM 7.2. My bad. I know I made a bunch of promises about explaining what this Slick and how IBM and AS400 works. I thought 2 hours into a video, we'd have 3 videos by now. So I promise I will explain that in the next video when we actually write some software for this thing. But basically what we just did is install, you can think of it like the kernel, the Slick, the system license internal code. It's kind of like a kernel, not really, it's kind of its own thing, but we just installed some stuff to disk, and now we have to install the operating system, and that is on this disk, the base disk 01. So we're going to pop this in, come on, to the machine. Theoretically, we'll only actually need 1 disk after this, but I'm like ripping through all my DVD-Rs. Only have a few left, so bought some more on Amazon. So we've installed what you can think about for now as the kernel of an operating system. It's literally on the disk. And now we're going to install the operating system. This will make sense when we make future videos. So I'm going to install operating system, option 2. And I'm going to choose it from optical. I just put that DVD I just showed you in there, number 2. It's giving me that same disk configuration attention report we saw earlier. And we are going to F10 to accept the problems and continue. I think it's just unhappy about having 1 drive. And it's letting me figure out how to add more disks to the system. We are just going to keep the current disk configuration, which is hopefully just 1 disk. And it says license internal code IPL in progress. I don't know what any of this stuff means. It's asking me to choose the date and time. It thinks it's, of course, January 8th, 1970 at 3:59 in the morning, which isn't quite right. That's kind of weird because this version of IBM I is well into the 2000s, so pretty sure I read in the documentation I can just take the defaults. Yeah, there it goes. I like this a lot. That only took something like 10 minutes, so everything I'm hearing is QSec security officer again. I can leave everything blank. Come on. I think we are running IBM I, and I don't know what to do about any of this. It is May 12th of 2026. Let's see if it likes that. In UTC, it is 5 in the morning. Last power down operation was abnormal. I don't know. I don't know what any of this means. I'm pressing enter. We're looking good. Yes. I think we're using IBM I, guys. Okay, it flashed a bunch of extra stuff I didn't catch on camera. More of that install screen. So we'll just try to log in with the security officer again. Okay, this is good. Password must be changed to continue sign-on request. Enter to change my password. Okay, this is like an initial OS setup. Password hasn't been changed since 1970. I know the relevance of that date, by the way. Anyway, I'm just going to set it to the same thing it was, QSec officer. Hopefully it lets me do that. New password cannot be same as current password. That's fair. We're going to be QSec offer 1. I like that. Always leave yourself a note so you don't forget. It's asking me to work with software agreements. I guess I'll just look at them all. I would love to press F15. But again, I don't have an F15 key. I'll even take F14 for accept. Don't have one of those keys either. Alright, Chloe and I went online and we were reading that if you don't have enough function keys, I only have 12 here, you hold shift and then another function key. So to get to 15, I'm going to hold shift plus F3. 3 plus 12 is 15. Let's see what happens. Right, Chloe? She's so sick of this IBM I stuff. I would like to accept all of the license agreements with F15. So I'm going to hold shift F3. I believe it worked. Yes. Another license agreement. I'm going to accept all of them again with shift F3. Seems to have worked. Oh my gosh, we did it. We are looking at the IBM I main menu. So much to do now. But the point of this video was to install IBM I, and we've done it. Now I've got another disk, which has taken another one of my precious DVD-Rs. I wonder how long these are going to be made. I might have to start stocking up. And I believe it's going to let us install the ability to write different types of programs, RPG, C, COBOL, or Fortran, whatever. I'm not really sure. I mean, let's mess around a little bit. Display a menu. 9. Yeah. Look how complicated it is. I actually understand all this, believe it or not. Let's look at user tasks. Let's send a message. I don't even know who I am. Hello. To QSec. I'm going to send this to myself. Is that going to work? Now, display messages. Yes. Hello from myself. IBM I, baby. Anyway, this is IBM I. This was the whole point. I can't believe it hasn't complained about needing some activation keys. That's exciting. I don't know when it starts complaining about that. My understanding is what I just did gives me a 70-day trial, and then it's going to start complaining. This is just so incredible. Programming? Let's do some programming. Programmer menu. Oh yeah. We're going to have a lot of fun with this over the next few months. Let's shut her down. I'll take the media out. Actually, I don't even know how to shut this thing down. I'm going to sign off. I got to go look how to shut this down gracefully. So right here is where my input is going. And I can choose one of these options, which you've seen me doing. or I can type a command. So we're going to do power down sys. Oh yeah, it likes that. Confirm power down of system. Power down sys command issued by user Q security officer and is being processed. So presumably this is going to shut down. Eventually got into a state where I can't connect the 5250 console to the LPAR anymore, but it is still running. So we're going to shut her down and we get a nice warning. For IBMI, only use this window if you cannot shut the IBMI logical partition from the command line, which apparently I can't. I'm going to say delayed, which is usually the safest. It tries to like warn the operating system on the partition that we're going down. We're on this reference code, the machine interface run in progress, whatever that means. So yeah, hopefully it can shut down okay. You'll have to see if it comes up in the next video, because I'm done with this video. This project almost took me out. What did we learn? Probably don't use IBMI v6. That didn't go so hot. Once I got 7.2 in there, we learned that you can indeed at least see these 528 byte sector drives, and you can reformat them successfully to 520 byte using Linux. There's a bunch of stuff I haven't tried, so the installer could always see those 512 byte sector drives. I wonder if IBMI 7.2 would format them. I don't know. I also didn't try to use one of the 528 byte drives. IBMI 7.2 is successfully installed on the drive we changed to 520 byte sectors. I'm just throwing this out there for posterity. There's much more to do now. We can actually start using the IBMI machine. I don't know if it'll be the next video, but probably within the next 70 days, there will be a video where we learn a little bit more about the architecture of IBMI, OS 400, AS 400, the machine interface, all that stuff I promised I was going to talk about 2 weeks ago. This video with the hard drives got the best of me. So look forward to that. We'll try to get some software on there that we write, maybe find some off-the-shelf software, try to run that on there, get it on a network so that we can try to get a 5250 terminal on my Windows machine connected up to the box. I got to give a shout out to Skinnerd over at the Serialport Discord, and I believe we've emailed several times over the past few years about IBM I and P-Series stuff. He was very helpful with a bunch of information and was kind of helping me troubleshoot a bunch of this stuff, so huge shout out to him. He's got a pretty sweet IBM setup in his home lab, in fact. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Surprise, I'm going to be at VCF Southwest in Dallas, May 30th. It's in like 2 weeks. I'll be there Saturday afternoon, so if you see me, come say hi. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It's the #1 thing I care about on the channel, and I'm on the road to 100,000 subscribers this year, hopefully. I think we're hovering around 73,000 right now. And of course, I've got a Patreon. I post behind-the-scenes type videos, the occasional early release, and I actually posted a little sneaker of this video because it was taking so long, and I wanted to give those folks an update. Thanks once again. We got IBMI installed. We used it. It was really feeling like that was never going to happen. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one.